What if the biggest danger in your life isn't what you see, but the warning you're refusing to hear? Before this year ends, many people will face a moment that changes everything forever. Today, you'll discover the hidden signs that may be warning you right now, and why ignoring them could lead to consequences you never expected. Stay until the end, because the final message may completely change how you see your future. If this message encouraged you to reflect on your life, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the Lewis Hub channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. Imagine receiving a warning that could completely change the direction of your life. Most people expect warnings to come with loud alarms or dramatic signs, but many of the most important ones arrive quietly. They come through an uneasy conscience, a growing sense that something isn't right, the advice of someone who genuinely cares, or the repeated consequences of choices that seem small at first. These moments invite us to slow down and honestly examine where we are headed. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It only allows problems to grow until they become much harder to face. This is why the idea that God is trying to warn you is so significant. It is not meant to create panic, but to awaken wisdom before a difficult situation becomes unavoidable. Throughout life, people often recognize these warnings only after looking back and realizing that they had countless opportunities to change direction. A relationship may begin falling apart because forgiveness was delayed. Financial struggles may deepen because wise advice was ignored. Personal integrity may slowly weaken because small compromises became daily habits. The warning was present long before the crisis arrived. The greatest danger is not always the consequence itself, but becoming so comfortable with harmful choices that they no longer seem harmful. That is why self-reflection is essential. Ask yourself whether there are areas where pride has replaced humility, where anger has replaced peace, or where convenience has replaced honesty. These questions are not asked to produce guilt, but to encourage growth. C.S. Lewis frequently emphasized that true change begins within the heart before it becomes visible in outward actions. A transformed life starts with recognizing the truth about ourselves and responding with courage instead of denial. Every new day offers another opportunity to listen before life forces us to stop. Choosing wisdom today can prevent regret tomorrow. Listening to a warning requires humility because it means admitting that we may not be on the right path. Yet humility is often the very quality that protects people from much greater pain. When we become willing to pause, reflect, and make better decisions, we open the door to a future built on integrity, peace, responsibility, and lasting hope, rather than fear and avoidable consequences. Many people believe that life-changing consequences happen without notice, but the truth is that they are often preceded by countless small moments that quietly point us in a different direction. A guilty conscience after making a dishonest decision, the repeated advice of a trusted friend, the discomfort that follows harmful behavior, or the feeling that something is pulling you back toward what is right, can all serve as gentle reminders to pause and reconsider your path. These moments may seem insignificant at first, yet they often become the difference between wisdom and regret. The challenge is that human nature tends to ignore what is quiet while chasing what is immediate and exciting. We convince ourselves that there will always be another opportunity to change, another chance to fix what has been broken, or another day to become the person we know we should be. Over time, those delayed decisions begin to shape our character and influence every area of our lives. A person who repeatedly ignores honesty may eventually lose the trust of those closest to them. Someone who refuses to address anger may find relationships growing colder with every passing day. Small choices accumulate until they create consequences that feel sudden, even though they were developing all along. C.S. Lewis often wrote about the importance of personal responsibility and the quiet battle that takes place within every human heart. He understood that our greatest struggles are often not against other people, but against our own excuses, pride, and unwillingness to face the truth. Every warning offers an opportunity to make a different choice before greater harm follows. Rather than seeing conviction as something negative, it can be viewed as a gift that points us toward a better future. When we become willing to admit mistakes, seek forgiveness where necessary, and make decisions based on integrity instead of convenience, we begin building a life that is stronger than temporary success or outward appearances. True wisdom is revealed, not by never making mistakes, but by recognizing them early enough to change direction. The person who listens to quiet warnings today often avoids painful lessons tomorrow, because every moment of honest reflection creates another opportunity to replace harmful habits with choices that lead toward peace, stability, stronger relationships, and a life marked by genuine character. When people hear the phrase, "a major arrest is coming," they often imagine flashing lights, handcuffs, and a courtroom. While that can certainly happen when someone breaks the law, there is another meaning that speaks just as powerfully to everyday life. Sometimes, an arrest is not about law enforcement, but about being brought to a sudden stop by the consequences of our own decisions. A person can become trapped by addiction, overwhelmed by dishonesty, consumed by pride, or emotionally imprisoned by bitterness and unforgiveness. In these moments, life itself seems to place everything on pause, forcing them to confront realities they have avoided for far too long. This kind of arrest does not happen overnight. It develops through a series of choices that seem harmless at first, but gradually shape a person's character and direction. A single lie becomes a pattern of deception. A moment of uncontrolled anger grows into broken relationships. Small acts of selfishness slowly replace compassion until trust disappears and loneliness takes its place. What once seemed like freedom becomes a prison, created by repeated decisions. C.S. Lewis often explored the idea that our choices are constantly shaping who we become. He suggested that every decision, no matter how small, moves us toward greater honesty or deeper self-deception. This perspective reminds us that the greatest dangers are often internal before they become visible externally. A person may appear successful, confident, and admired by others, while privately struggling with fear, guilt, or the weight of unresolved mistakes. That hidden conflict can eventually affect every area of life, from family relationships to personal peace and future opportunities. Recognizing these warning signs early allows us to change course before the consequences become overwhelming. It requires the courage to examine our motives, accept responsibility for our actions, and seek a better path instead of continuing to justify harmful behavior. Real strength is not found in pretending everything is fine, but in having the humility to admit when change is necessary. The most meaningful freedom comes from living with integrity, making decisions that align with truth, and refusing to let destructive habits define the future. Because every choice today quietly shapes the person you will become tomorrow, and the life you will ultimately experience. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they can ignore repeated warnings without facing lasting consequences. At first, the signs may seem small and easy to dismiss. A troubled conscience after making a dishonest decision, the disappointment of someone who trusted you, or the quiet feeling that your actions are leading you away from what is right may appear insignificant. Instead of responding with humility, many people choose to silence these feelings by making excuses, blaming others, or convincing themselves that everything will somehow work out on its own. The problem is that every ignored warning strengthens the habit of ignoring the next one. Over time, what once felt wrong begins to feel normal, and the heart becomes less sensitive to truth. This gradual change is often more dangerous than any single mistake because it affects the way a person thinks, decides, and lives each day. C.S. Lewis frequently explored the idea that character is formed through countless ordinary choices rather than dramatic moments. Every decision either moves us closer to integrity or further into self-deception. A person who repeatedly chooses pride over humility may eventually find themselves isolated because they refuse to admit mistakes. Someone who continually avoids responsibility may lose opportunities that once seemed guaranteed. Broken trust, damaged relationships, financial hardship, and emotional exhaustion rarely appear without warning. They are often the result of many ignored opportunities to change direction before the situation became serious. The purpose of recognizing these patterns is not to create fear, but to encourage wisdom while there is still time to act. Every warning offers a chance to pause, reflect, and make better choices before greater consequences unfold. Admitting that a change is needed requires courage because it means confronting uncomfortable truths about ourselves. Yet, this honesty is the beginning of genuine growth. Rather than allowing pride to keep us trapped in unhealthy patterns, we can choose accountability, seek forgiveness where it is needed, and rebuild our lives one decision at a time. The earlier we respond to quiet correction, the less likely we are to face painful consequences that could have been avoided. A life guided by humility, wisdom, and personal responsibility becomes stronger with every right decision, creating a future marked by trust, peace, resilience, and lasting character instead of regret and preventable loss. Many people think repentance is simply about feeling guilty for past mistakes, but its true meaning goes much deeper. Genuine repentance begins when a person recognizes that the path they are following is leading them away from truth, integrity, and peace, and then chooses to change direction. It is not merely an emotional response or a promise to do better someday. It is a conscious decision to abandon destructive habits and embrace a way of living that reflects honesty, humility, and responsibility. This change often starts quietly within the heart, long before anyone else notices it. A person who has been dishonest begins choosing truth even when it is uncomfortable. Someone who has allowed anger to control their relationships begins practicing patience and forgiveness. Small decisions like these gradually reshape character and influence every part of life. C.S. Lewis frequently emphasized that transformation begins from the inside out. External success means very little if the heart remains filled with pride, resentment, or self-deception. Real change happens when we become willing to face ourselves honestly, instead of constantly finding excuses or blaming others for our circumstances. Repentance requires humility because it asks us to admit that we have made mistakes and that we cannot grow while pretending everything is fine. Humility, however, is not weakness. It is the courage to accept the truth and allow that truth to guide future decisions. Many people fear that admitting failure will define them forever, yet the opposite is often true. Those who acknowledge their faults and take responsibility are usually the ones who experience the greatest personal growth. Every day presents new opportunities to choose compassion instead of bitterness, integrity instead of compromise, and wisdom instead of impulsive decisions. While the consequences of past actions cannot always be erased immediately, future choices can lead to healing, restored trust, and stronger relationships over time. A life marked by repentance is not a life trapped in shame, but one that continually moves toward greater maturity and purpose. It demonstrates that people are not permanently defined by their worst decisions, but by their willingness to learn, grow, and pursue what is right. The decision to change direction today may become the turning point that shapes every tomorrow with renewed hope, deeper character, stronger relationships, lasting integrity, and a future built on wisdom rather than regret. Many people imagine God as someone waiting to punish every mistake, But throughout Christian teaching, the emphasis is often that God desires people to turn away from destructive paths and be restored rather than remain trapped by them. Restoration is about rebuilding what has been broken. It begins when a person honestly acknowledges where they have gone wrong and becomes willing to pursue a different direction. This process is not always easy because it requires humility, patience, and a sincere desire to change. Yet it offers hope, reminding us that our failures do not have to define our future. Every person makes mistakes, but those mistakes become lasting chains only when they are denied, justified, or repeated without reflection. When someone chooses honesty over excuses, they create the possibility for healing in areas that once seemed beyond repair. Relationships damaged by harsh words can slowly regain trust through consistent kindness and accountability. Habits that once controlled daily life can lose their power through disciplined choices and the support of trusted people. Bitterness can gradually give way to forgiveness when the heart is willing to release old wounds instead of carrying them forever. C.S. Lewis often wrote about the importance of inner transformation, suggesting that genuine change begins with the heart before it becomes visible in outward actions. A person may try to appear successful or respectable on the outside, but lasting peace comes from allowing truth to reshape the inside first. Restoration does not mean pretending that painful experiences never happened, or expecting every consequence to disappear immediately. Instead, it means refusing to let past failures determine the direction of the future. It is the steady work of choosing integrity each day, even when no one else notices. This kind of growth often happens gradually through countless small decisions, rather than one dramatic moment. Choosing patience instead of anger, honesty instead of deception, and compassion instead of resentment slowly builds a stronger character. Every faithful decision becomes another step toward a healthier life, proving that change is possible for those who remain committed to it. Even after seasons of failure or disappointment, there is still an opportunity to rebuild what has been lost by embracing wisdom, accepting responsibility, seeking reconciliation where possible, and continuing to move forward with courage, perseverance, humility, renewed purpose, and a heart committed to lasting transformation rather than temporary appearances. Every choice a person makes, no matter how small it appears, has the power to shape the direction of their future. Many people focus only on major decisions while overlooking the influence of ordinary daily habits. Yet it is often the repeated actions that quietly determine character, relationships, opportunities, and peace of mind. Speaking honestly when it would be easier to lie, showing kindness when frustration feels justified, or choosing self-control instead of reacting impulsively may seem insignificant in the moment, but these decisions gradually build a life founded on trust and integrity. In the same way, repeated compromises can slowly produce consequences that become difficult to reverse. A single act of dishonesty may appear harmless, but if it becomes a habit, it can damage reputations and relationships. A moment of uncontrolled anger may pass quickly, but repeated outbursts can create lasting emotional distance between family members and friends. The principle is simple. Every action plants a seed, and every seed eventually produces a harvest. C.S. Lewis often emphasized that character is not formed in extraordinary moments alone, but through the countless ordinary choices people make every day. These choices gradually shape not only what we do, but also who we become. Someone who consistently chooses humility develops a spirit that is teachable and compassionate. Someone who continually chooses pride may become isolated, believing they no longer need guidance or correction. The consequences of our decisions are not always immediate, which is why many people underestimate their importance. Good choices often require patience before their rewards become visible, while harmful choices may seem rewarding for a short time before revealing their true cost. Understanding this reality encourages wisdom instead of impulsiveness. Before making an important decision, it is worth asking whether it reflects honesty, responsibility, and respect for others, or whether it is driven by fear, selfishness, or temporary pleasure. These questions help bring clarity when emotions might otherwise cloud judgment. Although no one can change yesterday's decisions, everyone has the opportunity to make wiser ones today. Every positive choice becomes another step toward a stronger future, proving that lasting success is built through consistent faithfulness in everyday moments, rather than occasional acts of greatness. The future people experience is often the natural result of the values they choose to practice consistently, one decision at a time, with patience, integrity, wisdom, perseverance, and unwavering commitment to what is right. Wisdom is often misunderstood as simply having knowledge or experience, but true wisdom is revealed through the ability to act at the right time. Many people recognize when something in their lives needs to change, yet they postpone taking action because they believe there will always be another opportunity. They delay difficult conversations, ignore unhealthy habits, avoid accepting responsibility, or continue making decisions they know are harmful. The danger of delay is that problems rarely remain the same. Like a small crack in a foundation, they tend to grow larger with time, making them more difficult to repair. Acting before it is too late is one of the clearest signs of wisdom because it shows a willingness to learn from warning signs instead of waiting for painful consequences. C.S. Lewis frequently explored the importance of choosing truth over comfort and humility over pride. He understood that people often resist change not because they cannot see what is right, but because admitting the need for change requires courage. Pride encourages us to believe we can continue without consequences, while wisdom reminds us that every decision carries weight. Consider someone who notices growing tension in a relationship. A wise person seeks understanding, apologizes where necessary, and works toward reconciliation before resentment takes root. Another person may ignore the warning, hoping the problem will disappear on its own, only to find the relationship broken beyond what seemed possible. The same principle applies to personal integrity, finances, health, and spiritual growth. Early action often prevents deeper pain later. Wisdom also requires patience because meaningful change rarely happens overnight. It involves making consistent choices that reflect honesty, discipline, compassion, and responsibility, even when immediate results are not visible. Small acts of obedience to what is right gradually become habits, and those habits eventually shape character. A person who responds quickly to correction demonstrates strength, not weakness, because they value long-term peace more than temporary comfort. Every warning offers an opportunity to grow before circumstances become overwhelming. Choosing to listen while the path can still be changed is far easier than waiting until consequences leave no easy way back. The person who values wisdom understands that the best moment to begin making better decisions is always the present, because every day of faithful action builds a stronger future filled with trust, stability, deeper character, lasting peace, and hope that continues to grow with every right choice. Many people say they have faith, but faith is more than agreeing with certain ideas or speaking encouraging words. Genuine faith becomes visible through the decisions a person makes every day. It influences how they respond to challenges, how they treat other people, and how they choose between what is easy and what is right. Belief without action often remains an unfulfilled intention, while faith expressed through obedience has the power to transform character over time. Obedience does not mean acting out of fear or trying to earn acceptance through perfect behavior. Instead, it reflects trust that choosing what is right, even when it is difficult, leads to a better and more meaningful life. This kind of trust is tested most during moments when shortcuts appear attractive or when compromise seems easier than integrity. C.S. Lewis often wrote that Christianity was never intended to remain only an intellectual exercise. He believed that truth should shape the whole person, influencing thoughts, attitudes, and actions alike. A person may understand moral principles very well, yet if those principles never affect daily choices, their knowledge produces little lasting change. Imagine someone who values honesty but continues telling small lies whenever the truth feels uncomfortable. Their belief in honesty exists only in theory until they begin practicing it consistently. The same is true for forgiveness, humility, patience, generosity, and compassion. These qualities become real only when they are lived out through everyday actions. Obedience also strengthens faith because each faithful decision builds confidence in the value of doing what is right. Choosing integrity in difficult circumstances may not always produce immediate rewards, but over time, it creates trust, strengthens relationships, and develops inner peace that cannot be achieved through deception or selfishness. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to demonstrate whether faith is simply a belief held in the mind or a conviction guiding the heart. This does not mean people will never fail or make mistakes. Everyone experiences moments of weakness. What matters is the willingness to return to the path of truth, learn from failures, and continue moving forward with humility and determination. A life shaped by obedient faith is built gradually through consistent choices that honor truth above convenience, proving that lasting transformation comes not only from what a person believes, but from how faithfully those beliefs are reflected in everyday words, decisions, relationships, responsibilities, and actions. No matter how many mistakes a person has made, hope remains one of the greatest gifts they can hold on to. Many people believe that their past permanently defines their future, causing them to live with guilt, regret, or the fear that they have gone too far to change. This way of thinking often keeps people trapped in the very patterns they wish to escape because they stop believing that transformation is possible. Yet, genuine hope begins when a person realizes that every new day presents another opportunity to choose a different path. Turning back to God is not about pretending the past never happened or expecting every consequence to disappear instantly. It is about acknowledging the truth, accepting responsibility, and trusting that a new direction is still possible. C.S. Lewis often wrote about the human tendency to search for fulfillment in temporary things, while overlooking the deeper peace that comes from living according to truth. He reminded readers that real joy is discovered not by running from reality, but by embracing it with humility and courage. Hope grows stronger when people stop measuring themselves only by their failures and begin focusing on the choices they can make today. Someone who has spent years holding bitterness can choose forgiveness. A person who has lived dishonestly can begin telling the truth. Someone who has neglected important relationships can start rebuilding trust through consistent acts of kindness and responsibility. These changes may appear small at first, but they become the foundation for a completely different future. Hope is not wishful thinking or blind optimism. It is the confidence that meaningful change is possible when truth is embraced and wise decisions are practiced consistently. Even when progress feels slow, every step taken in the right direction matters. Every honest conversation, every act of compassion, every decision to reject harmful habits, and every effort to grow in character moves a person further away from regret and closer to lasting peace. The journey may include setbacks, but setbacks do not have to become the final destination. What matters most is the willingness to keep moving forward with faith, humility, and perseverance. A future shaped by hope is built one faithful decision at a time, proving that no past failure has the power to overcome a heart that remains committed to truth, wisdom, restoration, enduring purpose, unwavering faith, and the courage to begin again each new day.